All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see lots of familiar faces on the call and some new folks that are joining us for the first time. We really appreciate this opportunity to share with you what we're doing around a project called eTruck. And this meeting is for the Workforce Development Advisory Committee. And so again, thank you so much. As you heard, the call is being recorded. We try to record all of the calls and share meeting notes so that we can just keep tabs on all of the discussions and all of the next steps with regard to this project. So my name is Stella Ursua. I'm the Senior Programs and Partnerships Manager for the LA Office of Grid Alternatives. I just want to welcome everyone. I want to review the meeting agenda real quick, and then we'll do some introductions. So a little overview. We will talk about the project, and we'll give some project updates. We have someone from Zeem Solutions that will do a short presentation for us on curriculum development. And then we'll have a panel that will be talking about developing curriculum for clean transportation, the clean transportation industry. We will have time for a short discussion, some feedback, and next steps for the project. And so what I'd like to do is go to team introductions. And so if we could start with the LA Office of Grid Alternatives. Giovanni, would you start us off, please?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Stella. My name is Giovanni Hernandez, and I am the Clean Mobility Program Manager with the Grid Alternatives Greater Los Angeles team. Awesome seeing lots of new faces today, and of course, our usual partners, and really excited for today's program. I'll kick it off over to Remy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yeremi. I am a Grid Alternatives intern at Clean Mobility, and I'm happy to see everyone joining the call.
Thank you, Remy. And how about our CalStart team, Tuan?
Thank you, Stella. Hello, everybody. My name is Tuan Chi. I'm a project manager here at CalStart in the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team. I'm so happy to see everybody here. Thank you for attending, and I'll pass it on to Nate.
Good morning, everyone. Nate Fernandez here, Lead Technical Project Manager at CalStart on the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team.
Thank you, Nate. Anyone else from CalStart? I think that's it, right, Tuan? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And Kristen from EPRI.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Bush. I am an engineer scientist with EPRI's electric transportation team. I'm also looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. Appreciate that. And Tuan is going to give us just a real quick overview of the project.
Thank you, Stella. All right, as you know, the project purpose is to create a California research hub to facilitate and accelerate the electrification of the medium and heavy duty drayage vehicle market in key areas. And the eTruck project has several goals and objectives. The first is to advance research, development, and demonstration of activities that extend the delivery range of large weight class battery electric trucks, beginning with drayage operations. The second is to engage broad stakeholders with a community first approach and use their input to promote equity and workforce development opportunities in priority communities. And the third is to plan, design, and deploy innovative, scalable public corridor charging strategies for medium and heavy duty electric trucks, again, beginning with drayage trucks.
All right. Thank you, Tuan. Before we get to this next slide, I forgot to ask everyone, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself in the chat, just, real quick, name, organization, etc. Okay. Thank you so much. While you're doing that, just a quick overview of the goals, objectives, and the function for the Advisory Committee for Workforce Development. So we want to ensure that pollution impacted, underserved, and tribal communities are involved in creating and guiding the initiative, and that these priority communities are involved and benefit from the larger clean energy transition. from medium duty, heavy duty electrification, from the jobs that are created and other resultant economic opportunities. Our objectives, real quick: inform the project on workforce development needs, communicate project activities to relevant key partners and stakeholders, promotion of equity and workforce development opportunities, foster workforce development partnerships in this targeted priority communities for zero emission freight corridor technology and development planning and job creation. And finally, our function: provide input on the development plan, equity and workforce development goals, inform workforce development plan and the accompanying activities. Sorry about that. Tuan, I'll send it back to you real quick.
Great, thank you, Stella. So I'll just be quickly going over the overall eTruck project update. So as part of the community engagement and workforce development part of this project, we've developed several collaterals for dissemination. So specifically to this WDAC committee, we've developed a 2-pager overview to provide the public with, general purpose and goal of the WDAC itself. And then we also developed a workforce development fact sheet where we embedded a zero emission training program inventory into that. So these collaterals are finished and we'll be attaching them in our follow-up email, so you can see what type of collaterals we've developed to further engage in our community engagement and workforce development work. And along with that, we do have a community-based organization stipend opportunity that we'll be announcing in the next slide. So we'll be selecting 6 CBOs, 3 to help us with community engagement work and 3 to help us with workforce development activities. Another part of the project is the industry partner webinar series that will be launching in June 2023. So this webinar series will be dedicated to the CTAC and WDAC member to provide them with introduction to this industry itself. So the first in the series will be introduction to zero emission vehicles. We'll be going over the different EV types, the history of it, and just about the benefits, the health and cost benefits of all of these zero emission vehicles. And the purpose of this webinar series is to provide WDAC and CTAC member with information about this industry. And you'll be better informed to be better engaged in this project itself. Another part of the eTruck project is conducting a Southern California fleet needs and maturity assessment. And this is now complete, at least the framework. And the purpose of that is to assess the medium and heavy duty electrification needs in Southern California. So we conducted truck manufacturer questionnaire and interview materials to solicit information on vehicle availability, battery system voltage, vehicle charging capabilities. So all of that has been completed. And if you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me. And then the last part is the lab. So as you know, part of the project, we're developing an open access research and development testing center. And this will be in Pomona, California. And we're receiving equipment for it in the summer, and we're expecting the lab to be ready for lower power testing starting Q4 of 2023, and Q1 of 2024. And I'll pass it on to Giovanni to go over our CBO stipend opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tuan. So yeah, as Tuan alluded to right in the previous slide, we did want to take the opportunity during this meeting to announce the rollout of a CBO stipend opportunity here for 6 different community-based organizations. We're dividing it 3 for the CTAC, right, which is the other advisory committee that we facilitate, which is the Community Technology First Advisory Committee. So we're gonna select 3 folks that will issue out stipends for that particular advisory committee, and 3 for this WDAC advisory committee, the Workforce Development Advisory Committee. the idea is to provide a small stipend just for ongoing participation and support in the e-truck project. So for example, things that we're thinking about, but not really limited to, are attendance of these quarterly meetings. Also, at times we have put together subcommittee meetings. So if we feel like like it's necessary to convene a small group and get together a subcommittee to make some decisions. That's part of the responsibilities we're thinking about is also attendance at those. Helping with outreach to stakeholders and partners, promotion of project related events. So as we as this project continues to evolve and we continue to create different materials to start now informing our community members, particularly those around and close to the designated corridors, we definitely want to start that engagement process, solicit input as well from community members, but just also get the word out, right? And so that's where we see like, needing a lot of assistance from our partners, and that's where this idea for providing a small stipend is coming from as well. And so we have some specific, tasks that are respective to both the CTAC and the WDAC that we're thinking about, right? So we'll be sending out a more detailed email to the CTAC and to the WDAC with the particular criteria and key responsibilities that we are laying out for this stipend opportunity. To mention a few again, related to CTAC, it's really more focused on community engagement, community input, right? Educating the community about this project, soliciting again that input, so that we can embed that into our ongoing activities. Now, for the WDAC, of course, that merits it needing to be a specific or organizations that are focused on workforce development, right? So, and helping us to in providing feedback in the development of training materials, curriculum that we're thinking about. So obviously those are some specific criteria there for the WDAC one. Some key dates that I just want to share with folks, right? We're thinking of opening the application period next week. Again, in the coming days, we will be sending out a detailed email of this. With the application period opening, we're anticipating Monday, the 17th. We'll keep it open for a little over a month until about May 19th is what we're planning, and start reviewing applications late May and announce who we're selecting for the CTAC and the WDAC stipends on June 7th. And then we're thinking of a timeline collaboration of July 2023 to July 2024. And so again, it's a small stipend of, as you can see, of $10,666 that will be paid quarterly over 4 payments, right, in a 1-year period. Again, just to elaborate, we don't envision work like taking place every week. It's about like how we embed information, project updates into what organizations are already doing. So if an organization's already going out into the community to table somewhere, then they can include some of the collateral that we're bringing, that we've already developed and that we will develop in the future into some of those activities, right? Embedding e-truck related updates and announcements as well in organizations' newsletters, e-blasts that are happening, et cetera, et cetera. So just like thinking of different ways in which we can embed already in existing programming that some organizations already have planned out. So, so that's along the lines of what we're thinking. So I'll wrap up with that and see if folks have any questions. But again, we will be sending out a more detailed email of this in the coming days, and you can always reach out to us with any specific questions that you have. So I'll pause there. and see if there's just any pressing questions that anyone may have on this.
I don't see any hands, Giovanni, so, but we can take those questions at the end of the presentation.
As
So,
well.
thank you. Thank you very much. Before we move to this discussion here, I did want to introduce our Workforce Development Director, Shamika Dixon, who is returning from leave this week. Shamika, we're so glad to have you back. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shamika Dixon, and I'm the Director of Workforce Development here at GRID. I was on leave because I had a baby who is, screaming in the back now, if you guys can hear her, but I am definitely happy to be back, and I am looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Shamika. And as you can see, we have some new partners here. So really excited about this. We have just a great panel of subject matter experts that are joining us today. So really excited that you're back in the office. And so with that, I just wanted to share just a little bit about why we're covering curriculum at this meeting. So our focus is to assist in the development of new training materials and programs that improve upon existing resources related to MD, HD, ZEV, transportation, workforce development, and support the build out of curriculum and training that meets the needs of these employers and prepares local community members for success. And so luckily enough, we had been having a discussion about these very things with Zeem Solutions right before the eTruck RETA project was kind of launched and put in our laps. And so we made contact with Nicholas Raspanti, and so we're going to be doing some work together. And so I asked Nick if he could provide us just an overview of the organization, what they're trying to do in the way of training, and how we can help them do that. So Nick, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then we're going to turn it right over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Stella, and good morning, everyone. Nick Raspanti here, Director of Business Development and Policy at Zeem Solutions. Really excited to be a part of the overall eTruck effort, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to present to you all today. So, I'll start off with an overview of Zeem Solutions, get into a little bit of detail because, it is a newer and unique business model, and then we'll get into what we're doing, like Stella mentioned, with the GRID team on workforce development initially, and then really talk about our plans for growth in workforce development, and as Zeem expands with this business model throughout the country. So just a little bit about myself before we dive in. Prior to coming to Zeem Solutions, I worked at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey for a little over 7.5 years, specifically in the port department. That's a big transportation agency. So think the Port of New York and New Jersey, very similar to the other large landlord ports like LA and Long Beach. So my two primary roles there were government and community relations, and then business development and industry relations. So in my government and community relations role, I was a co-creator of a workforce development implementation program through a broader Council on Port Performance coalition of, port industry and port community and maritime stakeholders, and with the primary goal to engage with the local host communities where the facilities at the port housed are located for job growth, training, and development. So really took that model and that approach and that experience that I had at the Port Authority there to Zeem Solutions and what we're doing, on the electric mobility side. So happy to take any of your questions at the end or after this. I'll share my contact information. We always welcome the opportunity to engage with all stakeholders. So a little bit about Zeem. So our mission, you can see here, is to transform the way fleets operate by providing an affordable zero-emission solution that improves air quality within our communities. So we consider ourselves an e-fleet as a service provider. So basically, in the most simple sense, we are building and operating electric mobility depots or hubs throughout the country that provide primary services of electric vehicle leasing. So any EVs really, light duty up through heavy duty, so medium through heavy duty, and it has to be fleet vehicles. We wouldn't be necessarily charging, say, Stella's personal EV at the depot, but mostly fleet vehicles. We also provide vehicle leasing, charging, service, maintenance, overnight secure parking, storage, and lounge space for drivers. So what's unique about Zeem Solutions is, you're looking at real pictures. These are real depot attendants there. Those are trucks we own and that are operated by customers right now. And the facility continues to be built as we speak. Welcome the opportunity. Anybody wants to come see it firsthand. It really is amazing to see the operation firsthand. So please reach out to do so. Next slide, please, Remy. So in the most simple description, a fleet operator drives their personal vehicle to the hub in the morning and then picks up their fully charged electric truck, or vehicle, whether it be a Class 5 box truck, a Class 4 shuttle van for people moving, a Class 8 tractor like you see there. So the blue truck in the front, that's a Class 5 C electric box truck, and the turquoise color in the back there you see is a Volvo B&R Class 8 electric tractor. So we're already working with customers that are moving air freight cargo with box trucks, people movers and those shuttles that I mentioned, and then also ride share and rental companies that are continuing to grow into the e-mobility space. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more information about this site, and then other sites going forward as we look to replicate this model throughout the country. So first and foremost, all of our depots will be sited near centers of commerce or major transportation assets like airports, seaports, warehousing and distribution on or near key freight corridors, as well as in urban centers. So the typical depot will be anywhere from 2 to 4 acres. These two sites in Englewood, California right now, really it's two sites that make up a little over 3.1 acres right now, but it's primarily it's 2 miles from LAX. So we consider it the airport model. So like I said before, there's a lot of passenger components, shuttling and ride share and rental car companies, but also a truck activity. So the major transportation asset that the depots are near really informs the vehicle composition and the type of operation that will be at those sites. But if you were to dive into this site, you'll see right now we already have approximately 100 electric vehicles, trucks on site, as well as actually, since I sent this in, we now have 15 DC, so dual DC fast charging, dual port chargers available, and over 12 L2 chargers installed and energized. We could support throughout the day. Another service we provide is called opportunity charging. So you don't need to get into the full service lease necessarily with Zeem, or you could do like a la carte where you could charge throughout the day, or maybe you just want overnight secure parking and storage. We are certainly very flexible. Like if a fleet operator were to own their own vehicles but want to take advantage of those other services, they could do that, as well as just charge throughout the day on a contract basis within their duty cycle. So I already mentioned a little bit of the vehicles that are already on site, and we will have that full build that we're expecting in September. Over 77 DC fast charge ports, 53 level 2 chargers, and that comes along with a 10 megawatt utility interconnection. So that's a lot of power, a lot of vehicles, a very intricate operation that involves hands-on, active 24/7, 365 operations staff that I'll talk about a little bit more. Next slide, please. So just a snapshot. These facilities, we consider them e-mobility hubs of the future that, as I mentioned, are already happening now. So just the basic model, if you were to say, Nick, what would be your perfect depot to build these throughout the country? We'd say 4 acres, could house approximately 200 to 300 vehicles of all sizes, and anywhere from, say 30 up to 50 dual port DC/FC chargers, as well as level 2 chargers trickled in there for battery conditioning and things like that. So anytime we go to these sites, it's typically industrial properties. They get significantly improved, lighting, fencing, paving, landscaping, finishings, and major utility interconnects. So when Zeem is looking for sites throughout the country, as I mentioned, near these major transportation assets, but other key markets, California really is a no-brainer in terms of the policy and political landscape, and really the eagerness and support to encourage, well, not only encourage, really accelerate electric mobility. So we're looking all over the state. When you look at from a transportation perspective, more sites near the ports of LA and Long Beach, as well as within the Inland Empire, and then also further north in the Bay Area. But other states that are making significant progress in electric mobility are in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, New York, New Jersey, Colorado. So we are looking in properties in those states and actually having significant progress on potential properties there, as well as some in Texas and Georgia and other locations throughout the country. Over the next 12 to 18 months, Zeem is replicating the scalable model at these other locations. So now let's get into a little bit more on the depot operations and what we're doing with workforce development. Next slide, please, Remy. So all these sites, as I mentioned earlier, it's key for Zeem that we are engaged with any of the local municipalities and community groups. Like Stella mentioned, we're working with GRID, and we started that, pretty early on, and it's still admittedly in early stages as we grow and develop together. But it is integral for us to engage with the local community, and like I said, work with them and collaborate for hiring within those communities. So these depots, depending on, like I said earlier, the size and the vehicle composition, could really have anywhere from 30 or 80 direct jobs at these sites, obviously at full build and 100% capacity. And then also, if you were to consider the indirect jobs that it supports with the fleet operators using the sites, it could be anywhere from 200, 300, or even more if you were to include the contractor opportunity charging that takes place throughout the day. And then we also look to work with local municipalities on their fleet electrification efforts, whether it's in an advisory capacity or using our infrastructure and vehicles, and then also collaborating on the many state, local, and federal grants that continue to roll out, not only in California, but throughout the country, with the BIL that passed in November 2021, and then obviously the IRA that passed last August, with a lot of government and federal support for this that's now being dispersed through local and state agencies and metropolitan or regional planning authorities. And then, as you see here and mentioned, this hands-on workforce training program, where we see these sites as not only electric mobility and fleets and trucking, but centers of innovation, and we're calling them like clean energy classrooms, where we welcome the stakeholders to come in, and test and train on these vehicles in our maintenance shop or with the charging infrastructure, and things like that. So next slide, please. So as mentioned, it is critical. Some of you might ask, what's Director of Business Development and Policy necessarily doing workforce development? But in this nascent industry, it's so early that workforce development is business development, and it is really critical for the future success, not only of Zeem, but of the industry, that we have a right size and a right trained workforce, where we are attracting and developing and then retaining that local skilled and diverse workforce based out of the local communities. We call them host communities, for these opportunities for tech position, operation positions, maintenance positions, and the management positions as well, more on the corporate non-operating side of the company too. So as I mentioned, collaboration is key. We're not the experts in necessarily workforce development or curriculum development. We will rely on partnerships like eTruck in these coalitions or GRID and other community groups and workforce development groups. So we see the relationship building and collaboration critical to collective success here. So what we're doing is with GRID right now is we're looking at all of our depot positions, and how do we dive in on all of those to create modules for curriculum development and training. So next slide, please. So here's just a quick snapshot, an overview of our, the depot operational positions that we have now, that we are diving into very shortly, where Stella and the team are going to come out and work hands-on with our VP of operations or operations manager, and then all these positions you see listed here to build out these modules that can inform curriculum development. So we're really excited where we are at this point. Like I said, still very early on, but we see this as one early stage, building the foundation that, like I said, we can replicate across the country with partners that are interested, because it is critical. It's going to be different in every market, just as the business is, but we continue to dive in further, and as I mentioned, like, collaboration is key. So we rely on these partnerships and your expertise, and then we could share our expertise on the e-mobility side and the charging infrastructure side, and then also learn together, because this, let's be honest with everybody here, we are, even in this industry, you have to be flexible, you have to learn on the spot, and we consider ourselves very, very nimble, and that we are early entrants into this space with actual operational facilities in place. It is great experience that like I said, we look to replicate across the country. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any of your questions. Oh, sorry, I already talked about what GRID and Zeem are doing. I didn't, Remy, thank you, but I was going to say next slide, but we pretty much covered that. So any questions you may have, happy to answer now, or going forward. I think my contact info is in here. If not, Stella, please feel free to share it with the entire group.
And Nick, we have two questions in the chat here from Commissioner Badejo.
Sure.
Nick, does your inventory include public transportation fleets?
Yes. So, I mean, is the question like, would we work with public fleets to charge at the site? If so, absolutely. But if it's a completely like publicly accessible model, and let me be clear, like, the definition of publicly accessible changes throughout certain markets and regions, but these sites are technically not, well, depending on the definition, they're not publicly accessible. Like I said, like, myself or Stella cannot just drive in and charge one day, but on a contract basis, or we could certainly partner with public fleets as a customer. Absolutely, this infrastructure. And we actually already are talking to a lot of public agencies, specifically transportation agencies in California and in these other markets I mentioned, that are very interested in, the infrastructure.
Wonderful.
And services, I should say.
Thank you. And Dr. Rawls from Cal State Dominguez Hills has a question. Are these positions that are currently posted available now? If so, is there an occupation code associated with the positions shared?
We actually will be hiring more soon. There aren't any positions now for LAX, but we are soon, and I will definitely share those with GRID or this group when the posting is available.
Okay.
Or the jobs are available, and we post them publicly.
Good deal. Thank you. And Kenny Melancon, who is one of our panelists, asked, you mentioned level 2 charging. Most of the companies in transportation are level 3. What do you do for the level 3 charging?
So let me be very clear. You know, these sites mostly have level 3 DC, FC, you know, high powered, fast charging. That is the primary goal, but level 2 charging is put in there for, you know, operational flexibility, and then also you know, battery conditioning. You don't always want to blast these batteries with you know, high power charging if you don't have to. So you get battery longevity. You know, we have like battery technology experts at Zeem. I will not pretend to be one of those and rely on my teammates who are, but let me be clear, most of these sites, like I said, 10, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10 megawatt utility interconnects to account for the high powered DC fast chargers and energized. Right now, those pictures that you saw earlier, the dual port DCFCs we have are the ABB Terra 184s. So 150 kW. So we are looking at all the high powered options to accommodate those, you know, larger vehicles and high volume, high activity duty cycles.
Okay. Thank you for that question. And then Hector from Jobs to Move America asked, is there an existing industry recognized credential that is something that program graduates can achieve through this training that would make them competitive applicants at multiple employers? I don't think we should be limiting training to the basic needs of, say, just Zeem, or for example, without considering how training can be used to build job resilience for workers that come with portable certifications or stacks with any kind of college credits, especially if companies like Zeem are reaping the benefit of publicly supported credits tax abatements. I would be concerned resources being directed only to build out a workforce for Zeem jobs without looking at how we could support worker earning power in this sector.
Great comment and question. I certainly agree. And, you know, what we are working on with Grid, as I mentioned, you know, not only for Zeem, but for the industry, and having a right sized and right trained workforce. But I believe this experience helps inform that curriculum and credential development. I would, you know, defer to some of the experts there on what that would lead to, but that's at least how I would envision this, these activities that we're doing now, that they eventually get to, not only for Zeem, but other employers in this space. And there's also, you know, other entities that are doing strictly, you know, like Charger Help is a very interesting and exciting company that is focusing specifically on like charger maintenance and technicians and building out these types of programs. I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but I really love their business model. So, you know, it's critical for the industry at large, and this isn't like an exclusive Zeem only type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nick and Hector, if I can just add, you know, this was part of the e-truck project. And so, you know, we hope that we can work with all entities, you know, and especially our the local unions, so that we can, you know, help to, you know, if possible, to, you know, build this out. This was just one of the objectives from the e-truck grant, that we try to assist in identifying any gaps within the existing training. And, you know, there's a few training programs out there. You'll hear about that from our curriculum partners in just a second, but this was just one example. And Nick and I and a couple other folks from Workforce had already had a discussion about this. So it just felt like, you know, let's start here. But yeah, definitely, I appreciate your question and appreciate your comments here as well. So thank you for that. Giovanni, do you see any other hands raised, or? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay. All right. Good deal. If you have additional questions, but please, by all means, you can submit them via the chat, or if you want to email us afterwards. Absolutely. Okay. This is a great conversation though. So thank you. Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate the presentation. And thank you to the advisory committee and, you know, for all of your comments and questions as well. So
Thank you
let's
all.
move on. I'm sorry. Let's move on to the panel discussion. And, again, we are searching for examples, right? We know that there's some training that's taking place out in the world around us. And we were trying to identify subject matter experts that could really help us better understand, what's there, what needs to be there, what type of positions should we be preparing folks for. And so we came up with this great panel of subject matter experts. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in just one second. But first off, we have Bernie Cotlier from the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, Sharon Sagado from Lacey. She's Senior Manager for Workforce Development. Dr. Tom O'Brien from the Center for International Trade and Transportation at Cal State Long Beach, and Kenny Birchman-Melancon, who is Professor and Faculty Chair at San Bernardino Valley College. So thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And as I said, we consider you subject matter experts. We want to hear from you the types of programs that you're working on. I have a list of questions that we will get into right after your introductions. So Bernie, if you don't mind starting us off with a short intro.
Well, thank you, Stella, and thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate the wide participation. My name is Bernie Cotlier, and I am one of the two national co-chairs of the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, or EVITP. Just briefly to keep things moving here, EVITP was launched officially at the University of Michigan by a collaborative of the electric vehicle industry, including manufacturers of vehicles, charging equipment, inspectors, universities and academics, and contractors, and a wide collaboration of the EV industry to make sure that the electricians who install and maintain the electric vehicle infrastructure charging equipment, or EVSE, is done first and foremost safely and effectively. So I'm glad to be here today, and thank you all for the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you, Bernie. Sharon?
Thanks so much, Stella. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Sagado, the Senior Manager of Workforce Development over at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, also known as Lacey. So we're a nonprofit organization where we help clean tech startups further develop their technology, secure funding, access customers, and pretty much test and pilot their prototypes. But at Lacey, I work under the Enhancing Communities pillar, and my main focus is helping create training programs to provide people from underserved and historically marginalized communities with technical training and industry recognized certifications, so they could either gain an internship or further employment opportunity with either our clean tech startups or partner organizations. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And next up, we have Dr. O'Brien.
Thanks, Stella. I'm Tom O'Brien, the Executive Director of the Center for International Trade and Transportation. We're based in the College of Professional and Continuing Education at Cal State Long Beach. We've been in existence for about 25 years now, and our principal role is education, training, and workforce development in the area of freight and logistics. That includes mostly professional development programs in logistics and marine terminal operations. We also have a sustainable freight certificate, which I'm going to be talking about this morning. And we partner with the Long Beach Unified School District and the Port of Long Beach in a 4-year logistics academy at Cabrillo High School in Long Beach. And the other part of what we do is research in the area of transportation, broadly defined, workforce development. And finally, we administer the California Local Technical Assistance Program on behalf of Caltrans, which provides free and subsidized training to local agencies in the areas of transportation across the state. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Dr. O'Brien. Appreciate it. And last but not least, we have Kenny Birchman-Melancon from San Bernardino Valley College. And Kenny, if you can introduce yourself, please. Are you on mute, Kenny?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Looks
there you
better.
go. There
All
you
right. My name's Berchman Kent Melanson. I go by Kenny. And I work here at San Bernardino Valley College. I've been here since 2012 to present. We do work very close with the advisory committee because we're driven by advisory, which has a list of companies like Volvo and Freightliner and Tech Equipment and Velocity, the local dealers, plus the manufacturers. We have the Penske's, we have Riders come by sometime, CR England, and a whole list of other really great companies that give us some good direction of what we do here at the community college. We have been involved with the Volvo Lights project for a couple of years, actually on the ground floor of this electric truck. And we've put together a certificate and of course the curriculum to get students up to a level of employment from interest of other companies.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Really appreciate you being here. And so Remy, if we can go to the first question. We had so much to ask everyone, because again, this is something new for a lot of us. And so, we came up with a list of questions. We checked with our panelists as well. And so the first question, Remy, you can just put that up on the slide. Uh-oh. I'll go ahead and ask it, and hopefully Remy's still with us. But oh, I know, I think we talked about this, but anyways, what was your process for determining the components for your curriculum and who was involved in this effort? And since we're not, in person, we're juggling with time as well. I'm going to ask the panelists to, whoever is ready for this discussion question, just to take yourself off mute. And if you, just want to jump in there, what was your process for determining the components for your curriculum? Who was involved in this effort?
I could go first.
Thanks, Kenny.
Okay. Well, like I said, a couple of years ago when we got started with the Volvo Lights program, and I'm of course looking for my list of things to talk about here. The main concern was safety, powering down electric vehicles, and of course how they work. So we put together a curriculum that we wanted students and other people that come to the classes to recognize and demonstrate industry safety standards. There is no certification out there for technicians at this time for high voltage vehicles. There are certifications for high voltage in a one lump sum, but there's nothing for technicians. We're still working on that. There really isn't still to this day, which we're talking 3 years later working on this, no certification that someone can take and say, okay, I'm a high voltage certified technician to work on an electric truck. So with that, we've worked very close with Volvo, and actually at a point now where their training is used in our classrooms. That is actually the same training that's taught at the manufacturer's level for Volvo. And yes, it's only for Volvo, but it's actually pretty standard across the industry. They being the Volvo company, give their own certification to their Volvo technicians. Now, again, that won't be recognized at Freightliner. They have their own training. So same thing with, I'm sure, Hino and Peterbilt and KW and whoever else has a truck. They have their own training. So there's no real one set, certificate. So what we did, we took a lot of their notes from each one of these manufacturers and created our curriculum, which is approved by the state. And these are the objectives that we felt were the most important, okay? Which is to perform high voltage safety standards required for 400 volts. Well, anything over 50 volts is considered high voltage. So that's kind of where we started. And then we, of course, demonstrate the proper PPE for working on high voltage. We describe the common components in the drivetrain and how the system works. Whether it's a bus, truck, or car, they all have the same inverters and converters, different sizes, but they still function pretty much the same. We demonstrate the proper procedure to isolate the high voltage on the vehicles. And then, of course, we're just starting to get into the diagnostics and repair of those electric vehicles that we're involved with. And I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you, Kenny. Anyone else? Sharon?
Yeah, I can hop in here. So over at Lacey, our program's a little bit newer than my colleagues and panelists here, but we started our programs back in 2019. And when we first started it, like I mentioned in my intro, we worked with clean tech startups. So we based it off of what our clean tech startups, like what their needs were. But actually in 2021, we launched a green jobs report, and I'd highly recommend anyone here who hasn't read it yet to please read it. But for those who aren't familiar, that is pretty much an in-depth analysis of green jobs within LA County, and it provides recommended actions on workforce investments to help grow a cleaner, stronger, and more inclusive economy within Los Angeles. So we were able to partner, that's like our North Star that helped us determine what our curriculum should be based upon. So we're able to use that as well as the partners that we collaborated with in launching that report, as well as our clean tech startups, because like we'd mentioned, they're the subject matter experts. They know what's hot, what's new, like what will be in high demand since they're creating this newest technology. So I would say, yeah, that's who we partner with.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else, Bernie or Tom? Any other thoughts?
Sure, I'm happy to jump in. The program I think of most interest is our Sustainable Freight Foundation Certificate Program, which is designed as a 20-hour synchronous online training, and it was developed as a pilot in partnership with the California Energy Commission as part of work that we were doing on the implementation of the California Sustainable Freight Action Plan. There was actually an action item that required stakeholders and the California Workforce Development Board to identify and implement steps to ensure that the existing and future workforce meets the needs of the California Sustainable Freight Transport System. So we went through a series of research steps that led to the implementation of the pilot program. And we started by doing a content analysis of the plan and sort of looking and identifying what the occupations and skill sets that were going to be needed to implement the plan, and asking then what the sustainable freight jobs were that were embedded in the plan, what were the workforce training and education gaps, what were the competencies that would be required by employers to address them, and the structure of training that responds most effectively to the competencies. We did a combination of real-time labor market analysis using tools like Burning Glass, which is now Lightcast. We solicited input from industry associations and working groups. We had a working group that was advising the CEC-led work. We gathered feedback from industry and education training partners using SurveyMonkey. We conducted on-site visits to employers and conducted in-depth interviews. We reviewed live job postings to match against them, and we surveyed participants throughout the course of the pilot. In looking at where the gaps were, we didn't want to replicate for the pilot what was already happening at community colleges, which was what was happening on the job through employers. And so the pilot ended up focusing on mid-level managers who may have been frontline technicians moving up through the supervisory ranks, but who were helping their companies transition to a zero emissions future under the California guidelines.
Thank you for that, Tom. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd be glad to talk about this question. I do have a few slides. I want to see if I can share those and make it a little easier to explain all of this. So let's see. Can you see the slides?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then we're going to start from the beginning here. And some of these will be for some other questions. But first of all, a little background on EVITP to better answer this question about how we develop our training. So the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program is a nonprofit organization. It's volunteer-based, it's brand neutral, and it is a national EV industry collaborative. Some of you may know that EVITP is required by the NEVI program in all 50 states. There's also California regulations that require EVITP on projects that are approved by or funded in part or in whole by the Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, or the Air Resources Board. And the answer to this question about how we developed the training is by working with this collaborative throughout the industry for the success of the industry through safe and effective installation of EVSE, or charging stations as they're often called. And to be clear, this is training for electricians. I know technicians is a term that's often used for other applications. Technicians is not a term for electricians. It is a clearly defined requirement in the state of California to be a state certified general electrician, and they are the ones who are able to do this kind of work. So how do we develop this training? Well, the collaborative, as you can see here, represents a lot of different kinds of organizations. These are founding partners, and they're not even all of them, but you can see that we have automobile companies and EVSE makers, universities, inspectors, manufacturers, contractors, a very wide collaboration in the electric vehicle industry came together to create the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program. Those partners do not contribute money, they're not members, but they have contributed in kind technical information and support to create the original curriculum. And we have had partner advisors ongoing, other companies as well, to continue updating the curriculum. EVITP is currently teaching its 4th generation of curriculum to electricians around the country, and we are in the process of finalizing the 5th generation EVITP 5.0, which will be introduced in the next couple of months. That's just the beginning, I guess, of how we do this. We have more information, but I think there's some other questions to better explain some of those.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bernie. Appreciate it. And
Yes,
so we'll go ahead and move to the second question, which is, how do you determine the types of skills that should be developed for your curriculum? And again, if you want to jump in, by all means, just take yourself off on mute.
Well, I'm happy to go ahead. Once we had identified the mid-manager as the target for our training, we went back to our advisory board and the industry partners and looked at what the middle management title occupations were, their job descriptions, and what was needed in the training. So we were looking at, what was probably over a list of 100 job titles that included fleet managers, facility managers, transportation specialists, environmental and land use planners, documentation managers, compliance managers, and looked at a suite of workforce needs that was built out through a series of modules that constituted the training. And that included current issues in freight systems and management, introduction to energy infrastructure and sustainability. In this world that we live in now, somebody who's going to be a sustainable freight manager needs to understand what a Public Utilities Commission does. And that wasn't part of most traditional trainings. The industry was telling us that we also needed to incorporate introduction to data and metrics for a workforce that may not have had formal training in pivot tables, for example, but would make them more effective on the job. So we built in an introduction to digital skills building, encapsulated in a capstone project that was based upon a fictitious company implementing a sustainable freight strategy. And so in that sense, we were combining content-specific skills in freight sustainability, energy sustainability, with more foundational skills that are connected to technology that would make the student more effective and competitive in the job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
I can chime in here. I think that so something that we do is as many people know, the people who have the best feedback are the ones who actually go through the program. So what we do is we provide a survey to our participants to kind of get feedback on how can we improve it going forward for future cohorts. And I think something that sometimes as like technical trainers and curriculum developers, we tend to forget that we also need to focus on the soft skills to help these people transition and get ready for the workforce. So a lot of times we focus on the technical skills, let's make sure they're really smart and ready to do these things. But sometimes we have participants who are highly intelligent and very technical, but are they able to work well with others? Can they advocate for themselves? Many of our fellows in our programs are transitioning from very different backgrounds, and sometimes they need additional support with tackling imposter syndrome or applying those transferable skills. So I think we wouldn't have realized that unless we got additional feedback from the participants in the program on how we can improve going forward.
Right on. Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to comment on the question a little bit, kind of a little different direction in the soft skills. The biggest thing that we see out here, especially with the electric truck, of course, is the safety of powering it down. But because we teach heavy duty truck, and I know that this conversations are mainly automobiles and cars, and I haven't seen too much medium duty yet, but in these conversations, but the technicians that, or the students that we give training to over here, we cover bumper to bumper on the vehicle. We cover brakes, bearings, air conditioning, suspension, electrical, everything that has to do with a truck beyond the electrical, but beyond the EV vehicle. So that's a benefit from our students. They're well-rounded when they leave here. And of course, have the opportunity to learn the proper procedures for powering an electric vehicle down safely, because once it's powered down, it's just a regular truck. And this is what makes our students valuable to companies that have electric vehicle. Just because you're powered down, what do you do with it after that? You know, and that's what our students have the opportunity to get that knowledge and perform in a manner that makes them be looked at for a position.
Thank you, Kenny. That makes sense. And Bernie?
Yes, thank you, Stella.
Mhm.
Once again, I will share the screen because I think it will help. Just give me a moment to get to the, oh, come on. Don't know why the share screen button is not popping up here.
Well, if it doesn't work, then if you can just walk us through that, Bernie, that would be helpful.
Yeah, is there somebody else who'd like to go ahead while I get that organized?
I think everyone responded to that question, but I can go
Oh,
on.
here we go. I found it. I got it. It's popped up. Okay, so let's go back to those. And can you see the slides, Stella?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. We will slideshow here. Okay, so in terms of how we determine this, once again, as I said earlier, we had a very broad and still do have a very broad collaboration of industry partner advisors of all categories. And we worked with those partners, with the auto companies, with the EVSE makers, with electrical inspectors, to determine, first of all, what are the challenges, what are the reasons for the training, what are the learning objectives, and then from there to determine what type of training was required. And what we heard from the industry was a great concern about, number one, safety. A big concern about safety, because from the very outset of the EV industry, at least this phase, before it was killed in the 90s, but the second phase of the EV industry, starting with the 2011 models, that there were fires that happened outside of the vehicles, and that happened because of stress on the electrical systems that are hosting the charging equipment. And so they want to make sure, first and foremost, that it was safely installed and reliably maintained. And that meant, of course, that electricians would do the work. So there's always a challenge between, the amount of training that you're offering and being comprehensive and being able to attract the electricians to go through the training. So because of that, we developed 20 hours of training. And some people say, well, how can you train somebody in 20 hours? Well, the reason we can train somebody in 20 hours is because they're already an electrician. And that means that if they are a state certified general electrician in California, they have 8,000 hours just to sit for the exam, and that's a minimum. So we're building on that strong foundation. And then they said, well, these are the areas we want to focus on. We want to focus on the vehicles. We want to focus on the charging equipment. We want to focus on the National Electrical Code, how to do proper site assessment, load calculations, how to do troubleshooting, repair, and maintenance. So what we developed is a curriculum to respond to those learning objectives. And that's what this is. And I'm just going to run through it very quickly. This is the section on electric vehicles. And I'm not going to go into details. The second module is on the EVSE, the supply equipment, the charging stations. And it's very comprehensive in that we're not just talking about level 2 or just talking about DC fast charging. We're talking about all facets of charging, all levels of charging, everything from the basic home level 2 to a commercial level 2 to DC fast charging and industrial charging, and the type of charging that they use at Zeem, for an example. Very comprehensive in that charging equipment and the installation and maintenance of it. The National Electrical Code is a critical aspect of any electrician's training, but particularly when it comes to EV. And this course emphasizes all the various chapters and articles that are specific to the EV charging. Site assessment and load calculations are also essential for safety. I won't get into the reasons now, but they're a big part of the curriculum, and they're taught in detail. And then the next section is commissioning and documentation, working with the municipalities and the utilities as well. Finally, troubleshooting and repair. EVITP is followed with a comprehensive proctored exam. And to be EVITP certified, you have to pass that exam. And then you are a certified EVITP electrician. So that hopefully will give you some idea of how we developed the curriculum and what the basic outline is.
Yeah, thank you, Bernie. I really appreciate, or we really appreciate just the overview. And it leads to the next question, which I'm putting in the chat as well. Were you able to develop different levels of a curriculum so that trainees could continue to build intermediate and advanced skills? And so anyone that wants to jump in, please, by all means.
I can start us off. So over at Lacey, I think Nick had name dropped earlier Charger Help. So we have the good fortune of partnering with Charger Help, and we created an EVSE maintenance training program. And what we did is we have everyone start at the same level, kind of like a fundamentals level as an intro to get them familiar with the EVSE maintenance. And then we actually provide different tracks for them, because sometimes someone can be very hands-on and other people want to be more on the back end project management. So what we did is we provided one track that focused, like I had mentioned, on project management, and the other one focused more so on the electrical components and the technician route. And I think it's a good way to kind of provide opportunities for participants, because you silo them and put them like, this is one path, everyone has to go this way. That doesn't really set them up for success. And I feel like it really empowers them when they're able to choose or have a say in their future career or employment opportunity. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Sharon. Really important point there. Yeah. Anyone else?
I'll add one thing. What was interesting from the assessment and evaluation of the pilot was not necessarily new curriculum, but new ways to introduce the curriculum that we had for different audiences, right? So there were employees, students who didn't really need to go through the capstone process. So the version that we're going to be rolling out based on what we learned from the pilot is going to have a shorter number of contact hours. Employers were happy with the content, but wanted a version that could be used solely for onboarding, which was sort of the language of sustainable freight, so that it could be built into the initial training, but that didn't actually get the student involved in the follow-up 20 hours. So as this is a rapidly evolving economic sector, the training is going to evolve in response.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Kenny, anything else here, or I can move to the next question?
No, I'd like to mention we have here at the college what we call stackable certificates, and so the student comes in and he learns about the product on again maintenance of a heavy-duty truck and repair of many different components inside that truck. And after they achieve that certificate, they can take a different level, whether they decide to go electric vehicle or CNG or hydrogen fuel. And so we have a clean vehicle technology certificate we created to give them that avenue to go. And after they complete that certificate, they can go over to our green technology certificate in electronics, which covers more AC and DC, and get them toward their certification for high voltage vehicles through our electronics department.
Mhm.
Well, we kind of give them the different levels to go through, and these certificates can be achieved one semester at a time if they're full-time students. If they're working at some facility, we give them opportunity to come in the evenings to these classes so they can complete in about a semester to a semester and a half when each certificate.
Thank you, Kenny. Appreciate those examples. I'm going to move on because we're running out of time. This is such a great discussion, though, I got to tell you. What partnerships were you able to build when developing your respective curriculum? And Bernie, I know you shared the entire list of partnerships. That was really helpful. But anyone else, give us an example of the partnerships that you built.
I'd like to go.
Go for it, Kenny.
Okay, we have quite a few partnerships that have evolved from this Volvo Lights project, and a lot of them have to do with AQMD and Edison and SoCal Gas and the manufacturers themselves, being Freightliner and Volvo. With the hydrogen fuels, we're actually going toward that also. We have a partnership with Cummins. These companies have really made our program what it is today. We didn't have the funding. We got the funding. We purchased equipment that we said we were going to purchase, and we implemented with that. We also have support from not companies, but the congressman for California has given us some need to purchase some electric vehicles. And we've also got support from local businesses that have donated an electric vehicle to us also. So this is like I said, this is outstanding. We community colleges don't have the funding to do what I have right now. And it took everybody to get us where we are today.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. Anyone else? Any of the other panelists?
Yeah, I'll add the advisory board for this through CEC included GoBiz, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, CARB, California Workforce Development Board, Caltrans, the Employment Training Panel, and then a host of industry stakeholders, including rail, drayage, ports, labor, and OEMs. We also created an observer cohort who weren't class participants, but who wanted to assess the value of the content for their own training purposes. So that included SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, California Transportation Commission, among others. We had participants from the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, Logistics, FOSS, and a whole host of others, LAX included.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom. Any other comments before we move to the last set of questions?
Stella, just one quick comment on the previous question. I just wanted to say, in terms of advanced and stackable credentials and all, EVITP is advanced training. Once again, built on that foundation of 8,000 hours or more for an electrician, and it is it is the comprehensive training that they need to do this particular work.
Thank you, Bernie. And if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to the last set of questions, and I put them together in the chat there because we're running out of time here. I want to make sure the folks in the audience have a chance to ask their questions. We've got some good questions in the chat as well. So how do we connect more community members to job opportunities that support the installation of charging stations and the transition to electric trucks? And the final question, how do we work across our silos to prepare individuals for not only training, but for eventual careers in clean transportation? So I thought the two questions, we might be able to answer both of them at the same time, but panelists, these are the last two questions.
I'd like to go first.
Absolutely, go for it, Kenny.
Okay, so this is what we're seeing out there with our students. Companies that have the electric vehicles are not hiring from outside their element. They are usually promoting from within. Example, let's go back to Volvo because I can use them as an example. They're not going to take a student right out of our school that took this training and bring him and put him on an electric truck. They have to go through different levels to get to that, different levels of Volvo training to get to that level of being hired to work on an EV truck. Companies that have EV trucks, they're not working on them either. They're towing them to wherever they're manufactured to get them worked on. So no one's really hiring anybody as far as students that take our classes to get jobs. As far as charging stations, the charging stations, they have so many different ones out there. We at the college are teaching charging stations, how to diagnose them and how they're built and how they work inside. But because charging stations are app driven, it's a limit. We can't really do what we need to do to support the industry and charging stations yet. And that's the question that electric truck companies have when a truck doesn't charge. Is the truck the problem or is the charging station a problem? These are the kind of things we're trying to bring together now, and really don't have the support from either side yet how to resolve that situation. But again, the students that complete our programs aren't being hired by the industry because the industry is hiring from within their company for their type of electric truck that they purchased.
Thank you, Kenny. Sharon, Bernie, Tom, Bernie?
Yes, Stella, thank you. So quickly, because I know we're running out of time, there are great opportunities for community members to be involved in the electrical trade. The first and foremost way for them to get in is through pre-apprenticeship programs. And they're a great opportunity to prepare to get into an apprenticeship. In terms of community involvement and DEI, the Electrical Training Institute of Southern California is the largest electrical training apprenticeship in the United States with about 2,000 apprentices. And in terms of that community involvement, they are 81% BIPOC and women, only 19% white male. So there's already a tremendous effort there, very successful effort to integrate the community into this work. But once again, I would encourage everyone involved to, for those who want to get into the electrical trade, to support and fund pre-apprenticeship programs as a pathway to get into the electrical trade and have a career and not just a job.
Thank you, Bernie. Sharon or Tom, any final comments there?
Yeah, I could chime in really quickly. And Bernie, thank you for sharing that. I may have some participants who'd be interested, so I'm gonna reach out to you afterwards. But a little, like a shameless plug, I would love to encourage everyone to sign up for Lacey's newsletters or program updates, just because we have about 4 programs a year. And we'd love to provide the opportunity for more people. And I hate to say this, but as you can see, I'm the only woman on the panel. So I'd love to involve more women in this field, because I feel like not just in clean technology, just in technology in general, there's not enough women. So we definitely want to encourage more women to apply. So please sign up for our programs. And I think another way to kind of get the community more involved is provide more education and outreach to high schools and community colleges about the EV infrastructure workforce. Because I think a lot of them think they need to go to, need to be an electrical engineer or need to go through these other routes, but it's like we have these programs available. So that, yeah, that's what I would say.
And I'd echo what Sharon said. What we've learned from our high school program is that introducing these topics early hooks people into sort of transportation broadly defined. And that means avenues for advancement throughout their life. And you're not getting this, not only getting the students, you're getting teachers, you're getting guidance counselors, you're getting parents who have a better understanding of this as an opportunity. The other 2 things I'd add really quickly. One is we do a really good job in the education sector of trying to build articulation agreements on the credit side between community colleges and 4-year institutions and dual enrollment through high schools. We don't do such a good job on the non-credit side. And somebody, you know, who's building credentials through Bernie's program or Sharon's program should find a home for something like ours in a way, and we facilitate that access, and starts by information sharing. Last thing I'll add is that the community of learners has to include the public sector, the regulatory agencies, so that they're aware of the decisions that they're making, what it means for the operators. And by bringing them in, you're actually building, it's an overused term, the sort of ecosystem of training and education that I think supports the long-term health of this sector and its future.
Excellent point. Thank you, Tom. And thank you all. We have a few questions here. I did want to start with Aaron's comment here from SCE. This would be very helpful to communicate to state agencies. SCE often gets requests that we need to make sure that we are only funding workforce development curriculums. That number 1, provide certification. Number 2, can be linked to existing job codes. If neither of these exist, it inhibits many organizations' ability to support investment in HV vehicle technician training. So thank you, Aaron, for making that very important point. We do have a couple questions, and then I'll just open it up for just a couple more minutes. Let's see. The question from, Commissioner Badejo, any type of lobbying or advocacy utilized or needed to further the workforce needs? Also, are you aligned with any initiatives such as Justice 40, PLA 2.0 with pay to learn models? Anyone want to take those questions? Looks like folks are thinking about it, Jackie, but I will move on to the next question. Do any of the programs address entry-level and re-entry community members? Thank you, Dr. Reverend Jackson. Responses to that or to Jackie's question?
I'm looking for the question. It's on the message board, right?
Yes.
I could address Reverend Frank Jackson's question. So yeah, our program, we do provide entry-level and re-entry community members with an opportunity. So we have participants who have been justice impacted or those who are brand new to clean technology and want to learn from the very beginning. And we do offer those opportunities. But in retrospect, we also have participants who have years of experience and want to transition into this new field. So it's a very diverse group. So yeah, I definitely would recommend our program for anyone who's interested.
And Stella, I'd like to address the commissioner's question. It's really interesting, and we sort of tend in the education sector shy away from lobbying, right? But I will say that there was a benefit to having workforce explicitly called out in the California Sustainable Freight Action Plan, because it gave us a mechanism to both research and pilot the program. And I think you sort of see that reinforced in the governor's latest budget, in other types of planning documents, where having workforce called out sort of gives the education sector and other partners a mandate or a charge to do what we're doing.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. And Bernie?
Yes,
Final
I'd like to
questions?
address the Reverend's question. Thank you very much for that. The electrical industry in Los Angeles is very fortunate to be working with a number of community organizations, including those that work with formerly incarcerated individuals. One of the organizations called Big John Cares, which works with youth. Another one is Second Call, which has been working for years now with formerly incarcerated people. Their track record is excellent. They've placed over 2,000 formerly incarcerated people in the trades, and over 1,000 of those in the electrical trade. And Big John Harriel, the founder himself, I'm proud to say, is an EVITP certified electrician.
Right on. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have run out of time. We just need to close this up, but I want to thank the panelists and Nick for your presentations today, for answering all of our questions. You know, when we first started talking about this and, you know, what's the agenda for our next meeting, right? I wanted to make sure that folks had a sense for how big this initiative is, how much money is, you know, coming down that pipeline. And, you know, I've been in presentations lately where it's constant. Where are we going to find the workforce? How are we going to train them? What type of programs are available, you know, to build their skills? And so this is a big topic, a hot topic right now. And I wanted to make sure that our advisory committee members had that opportunity to hear from different organizations about their particular curriculums and what it took to get these curriculums going. So a lot that is involved. You know, clearly we'd probably need a half day just to, you know, kind of, you know, dig down into each of the curriculums and, you know, all the great work that you're doing. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll have follow-up notes. We'll have the recorded presentation available. And if you have any more questions for the panelists, please go ahead and shoot that over to us and we'll try to get a response to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Giovanni, can you close us out, please?
Absolutely. So just a quick reminder, you know, Ms. Stella already alluded to, we'll be following up with a meeting summary and recording link for this. So if any colleagues that you know have missed today, you know, they can rewatch it that way. And you all could also rewatch it as well at your leisure. Our next WDAC meeting is scheduled for July 13th, same time. And we'll also be sending in the coming weeks a communication around our very first partner, industry partner webinar series, which Tuan alluded to earlier. It's focused on ZEB 101. So that's coming up in June. So we'll be sending out more details on that and how to RSVP and carve that time out on your calendars. And we also just want to ask if you can help spread the word on that particular webinar series, because that one is open to the public. So that webinar series, that one in June and any other ones moving forward for that webinar series is particularly, the intention is to open it up to the public, to the community members, stakeholders at large, to get that word out, to educate, et cetera, et cetera. So we would love your help in getting the word out for that. And then again, we'll also be communicating out the stipend community the stipend opportunity in the coming days as well. So we'll be sending that communication out. Next slide is just our contact information. So feel free to reach out to us. You'll get that in the slides. But you know, in between now and when you get the meeting summary, feel free to shoot us any questions that you may have, and we're happy to assist. And lastly, just want to thank everyone, our partners, right, that are all part of putting this together, this effort. I want to thank the team, CalSTART, EPRI, Grid team for putting such a wonderful program together. And of course, our great presenters and panelists for today. Thank you for your expertise and just sharing that with everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week, and we shall continue to be in touch. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, Stella.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.